So basically, whenever we are going to do anything and like I'm presenting anything, so there is a way and there is a reason why we are going to do that. So there is a W concept we are going through there, why, what, and where. So first, there is in this presentation, I'm going to cover these topics. The topics are the introduction of coding standard, why it is necessary, declaration of header variable names, use of indentation and comments, things take care while using array and data structure using modular programming and subroutines, avoidance of older function, use of freeform rpg. Okay. So let's start with the first w, that is what is the coding standard. So means we are used to code in every usually day usually 8 hour in a day, and we are you as a backend coder, so we used to do coding. So means at the end of the day we got our results. So why we need coding standard and what is that? So basically, what is that? Coding standard are the set of guidelines for a specific programming language that define programming style. So what is that mean? What is the mean of that line? The mean of that line is whatever you are going to code. Okay, so we will give you a proper definition what we are going to write written over there and what the mean of that. Okay, and and then practice and method of each aspect of a program written in language. Okay, so after the definition and after the write down the guidelines over there, so in future if we again want to read that code, that how we do with that, so we can easily understood, okay, that time we have done with that and now what you have to do, I have to do that kind of. So basically, the coding convention are not enforced by compiler. It's all up to software programmer. So basically, if we talking about the coding standards, so there is a not a specific way to write down the comments or write down like understand how our structure is going, but for the specific design or for the more understanding purpose, we go through a method, we go through a rule that we could make by our own. And basically if we doing a work for a client and we are doing work for in our company, so company have their own standard and client have their own standard, so we should follow these standard with the help of that by understanding these things. Okay, and the what the mean of this line, the coding conventions are not enforced by compiler. Means if we are using any comments line and the coding standards, so compiler didn't read that. It is for a user perspective, how user do that for in their coding slides. So the next thing is the why coding standard is necessary. So few topics I have mentioned here: the securities issue, site performance issue, user interaction, service response, code reusability, and flow issue. So basically, security issue. The main reason of commonly exploit software vulnerabilities are including bugs and error in a logic. So what happened? Sometimes we write down any code and we got any error, and we are writing any kind of code regarding to security, anything. So we can easily get what is the mean of that line if we have declared that line in that particular part, and what is the logic of that. Can we sort out this? Can we make more enhanced due to securities issue? And the same thing stand for the site performance issue. If you are writing any code for the any website or any kind of that, so we can use that code like read that code like I am the coder and the my and I have just leave that company. So from the my back the company hire another person and they are going to read that code again. So for that it will make more user interaction with that, like what I have done they can read easily and they can implement their new things with that. and we can understand what kind of flow is written by the user, and that kind of code and sometime what happen, there is a different type of coder are write down their code, so they have write with their own logics and with their own opinion. So might be I have a more good idea to write down their code, so I can understand, okay, that code is taking too much lines, so I can implement this thing and I can sort out this. So for that, we can understand this thing also. So before write down any code, so we write multiple code, we need to write down in our RPGLE. So for before writing down code, we provide a header for that. So who is writing that code, and who is the author of that code, and what is the purpose to written that code. Okay, and in regarding to in which project we are written this code and what is the date we are going to return. So for that, whenever we are going to open that program, so we can easily understand what is the main purpose to write down that part of coding, and in which date we have write down that code, and like we have different version of RPG like third, fourth. So we can understand, okay, that is the code written in that scenario when we are working on the RPG 3. So we can modify that code in the now as the current situation as using the RPG third, fourth. So we can use free format in that in that code also. And modification log, like we, as per the client requirement, we have to write multiple things as per their requirement. So we can write down there as per the date and what is the purpose to adding or removing that code and what we have done with that. And after that, the below header and variable. So before starting writing any code, we need to define any kind a kind of variable data structure and array declaration standalone variable. So whenever we start these can giving a proper comment, so we can easily understand, okay, that part that is the header part and starting from that part scenario. So that is the modification log, like I have discussed with that. So modification, or we don't need to write down too much thing with modification log. So that the modification part, modification, and the modification date, and modification is done by with whom, and what kind of modification is done in that particular program. And after that, there is a prototype declaration, means this is a kind of a way I just want to explain what is that. So basically there is a prototype and a programmer is write down there, that is the prototype declaration thing. So if we going to declare any kind of standalone variable data structure, it doesn't mean we are going to put any that standalone variable in any part of that. So make sure we should give a proper comment, that is the external variable part, and after that we need to write down these things under that comment section. So it will look like, means easy to us also, easy to for those who are going to read that program in future also. Okay, so the now we comes to variable name. So how we need to write down a variable? So first thing is that consistent variable name means if we are going to make a program, so we should understand the variable name should be not first things, not like that who doesn't mean like we are making a sub file. Okay, so it doesn't mean we are just writing down abc 1 2 3 or kind of that. So we have to give a proper name and a consistent variable name, that the variable can define that particular part of that. And don't go beyond of 10 to 14 character. Make sure our naming convention character is not more than 10 to 14. Okay, so if that we consider 10 to 14, so it will looks good and easy to understand also. Okay, name should be meaningful, do not use abbreviation. So sometime what happen in rpg 3, as we have only we have to allow only 6 digits to write down any name. So we used to do like for the rupees and for any transaction like dollar at the rate, for the declaration and any kind of abbreviation, m- like if we record lock. if we want to use any record log kind of variable, so we are the RCL. So that's quite not understandable for that time. But nowadays we have means in free format we are using, we have lots of uh, area to write down our main so name. So make sure we should not, instead of using abbreviation we can use a proper naming convention. Okay. So if you are using abbreviation, then make sure this is consist. Try to avoid special characters such as has, dollar, and at the rate and underscore also. Means we are usually use these kind of things in our subroutine and in our naming convention also, but try to avoid, so that's a good thing in that condition. Else we are using sometime in triggers things also and wherever we need for that. But if we are not using, then that's a good thing. So using meaningful variable name, so what the mean of that, like sometime in the programming things we are using temporary variable. So what we do, we use as a temp thing because we know that is the only for the backend and programming purpose. That will not affect if we didn't give at that means a proper naming convention. So it's good. Means it's not good for us. Means as per programmer thinker, as a coder thinker. So instead of using temp thing, we can use t and that proper variable name that we going to put in the temporary, or instead of that we can use a work variable. Okay, so that's look good and quite understandable for two. Yeah. After like I have write down there for example with that, like customer id and customer id and this kind of customer also. So these are the example, you can go with that. So variable name we are means if we are using a coding in the RPGLE and RPG. So there is a sub, we are using a sub file a lot. So whenever we writing down any sub file and making any sub file, so the sub file record format name should be like kind of that name, and and the suffix is SFL, and control format name also is the name and suffix of control. So it is quite understandable to us that that is the employee sub file and the employee control file is belong to that subfile record format. Okay. So and after the subfile field name, we can write down the, like we have using multiple subfiles, so we can write down the is belong to subfile one, so s1 and kind of that, and field name is s1 for that kind and that particular part. So it will make me more convent to us during writing the program. Display file naming, we are using multiple display files, so we can use d1, d2, d3 by using their multiple way. Use camel keying if two or more word. So I have given an example, like here is the written over there emp d1. If we are not using, like we are using like emp d1 in a short character, so it is not more visible to anyone who are going to read. Even I am writing the code, so even this is not visible to me also. So camel casing is a standard, a universal standard we should follow in during writing down the function of code, a variable, whatever we are going to write down in our code. Okay. Using the name constant, consider the following literal. So I have given an example for that. If status my file and that is the record format name is 1218, so instead of using that, if I'm using write down this error record log. Okay. So this is the quite looks good also and quite understandable for me. Okay, that is the part of the working for that particular thing. So that is looks very easy to understand and looks good. And after that I have using the constant literals also. So if we are using any date constant by using c, so instead of writing down the constant keyword, we can only use the upper c and name of the constant, so it's also is good for that. Indentation and comments. So indentation and comments are major use in any, whenever we write down any kind of code. So if we are using any kind of a loop, so we should know that proper spacing. We use any if loops, select statement. So in the below logic we are going to relate with that. So we usually give uh, means the new comma didn't think like that. So we usually we have use two spacing with that, so we can understand that yes, that's the particular things belong to this loop. So basically it's very good to reading the loop, and instead of a multiple using loop like nested if else loop, we can use select statement also. So our program is quite clear to understand in the understanding thing. And here the comment purpose, for the single line comment we can use two slash, for multi-line comment in CL we can use hash and star, then for the ending of that star and slash. So that is for comment purpose, and that is for indentation purpose. And during the writing down the program also, in SQL RPGLE, we execute SQL, write down the SQL and declare all the query in the single line. So instead of that, what we can do, we can divide and these thing, like first we can declare, if you are using cursor, then we can declare cursor in a single line, then our select statement. Even if we are using only single variable name with the select, so in that case also we need to uh, break these line in the multiple form, like select, from, where, order, and for read only. So that's look good also, and we can understand easily. And if we want to add anything with the select query, then we can easily write down the next line. We don't need to means again move next, write down the add new line, and then so it will also save our time. Function alignment. So basically I have given an example here. So the set date of event, so I have write down the same scenario within a two line. So, okay, so in that particular set day of event I am passing multiple parameter of date. Okay, so and in the below of that I am passing that parameter in that way. So you can easily see that how coding standard make that is the more visible instead of that, and it also look good. And if we want to change that particular thing, so I can just easily click here over there, and that can I easy to understand, then I can easily remove that and modify that. So if we are using function alignment, so make sure we have write down in that kind of way, so it will looks more good and easy to understand also. So use indicator DS. So basically what happened, uh, we are using 03 for usually for exit purpose. So what we do when we have to write down the 1000 line code, 2000 line code, so uh, we can understand what is the 03 is doing, and what is the 05 is doing, what is the 112 is doing. After the few days or few months, again we are opening that code in that scenario. Okay, so for that data structure of indicator indara, that's a quite helpful for that. So we can easily understand the f3 is doing for exit purpose, f5 is doing for refresh purpose, f12 is doing for cancel, and f12 for delete purpose. And if we instead of using f3, we can usually write down the exit only also. But we are using, like our team using f3 for the exit purpose, or might be anyone is using f5 for the exit purpose. So for that we can easily understand what the mean of that. Like here we have write down an example for that also. Instead of in03 I'm using f3 for exit, and it's look good with that. So you can see that thing also, and that's a very helpful in RPG 3 and RPG 4. So we always use data structure Indara and it is keyword for that. So use template and qualified data structure. So basically what the mean of that, if we are using template and qualified data structure, so we can easily understand that is the what is these means. Here I have given an example, like a contact information template have the workman mobile number. So what the mean of that, that is work like a that, because that contact info schema is copy for that particular part. So always I'm using that is form in the that belongs to that template. So it will easy to write down, it will sort our code also. And by using the qualified data structure, I have just using the name, and that particular by using dot operator, by using that particular thing is belong to that thing, and that particular thing belongs to that thing. So it will really easy to understand to for us. After that, the array. So try to means avoid multi-occurrence data structure instead of array data structure. So we are using multi-occurrence data structure. Okay, instead of that, we can use array data structure. So it looks good with that also. And the avoid compile time array. So I have given an example of compile time array here. So basically, the compile time array values are hard coded with the program. So we used to avoid this compile time array, and we will go through the runtime array. So it will more, and pre-runtime array also sometimes we need that. So it will more easy to means write down our code with the help of that. So qualify whenever possible. So whenever we like, I have given an example with the end of file. Whenever we making a sub file, so we usually use end of file for that, and found for founding any value with the chain operation and any kind of operation we want to search. So instead of that, what we do sometime, we usually like end of file, we usually without passing any value in the parenthesis, and we write down like that. It also work sometime. So instead of using that, we can pass a value with that, so we can understand, okay, that particular built-in function passing that value. So and that particular block of line or using that particular work. So we can easy our work and easy our code by using these kind of thing. Use varchar instead of char. So whenever we are using character function, so instead we need to use string for removing the space. So instead of that, we can use varchar. So the spaces are automatically be adjusted by the padding using varchar. And so these kind of things if we are using, so we don't need to write down too much thing by using comment section. So it will quite not means overlapping our code, and our code is looks more good with that and more effective. Modular programming and subroutine. So using subroutine in a good habit to use in program. Okay. All right. So what whenever we write down in sub file, so what we do, we write down sub file in a three way: a clear part, load part, and sub file part. So whenever we are going to l- debug that any particular part and reading that code, so we can understand, okay, that part is clearing, okay, leave that. Where we are getting it in load section, so we can work in the load section. So it will look means more easy to understand, okay, it this is section is doing that part, and we need to work on that only. Okay, instead of without using, if we are not using any subroutine with that, so from the top to bottom we need to read the code multiple time, and then we need to perform on that. So the subroutine is a good habit to use in a program. New procedure and sub procedure service program store prototype in copy or copybook. So procedure and sub procedure is a quite good form sometimes, so we can use that particular part also. And I have given an example for that in the below. So whenever we are using procedure and sub procedure, so we need to declare that the prototype that is a prototype declaration, so we can easily understand, okay, that is part calling from the another program. Service program is also using the good habit in the program. Store prototype, copy member, copy paste. So whenever we writing any program means multiple part of program, and we are checking that, so instead of writing that program in the doing copy paste in that program in that, we can use only the copy members of copybook, so it will quite good with that also. Do not use older functions. So actually we sometime what happen, like we all are going to shift in the new way, so we are using free format. So no one is trying to means accepted fixed format and free format, fixed format instead of that. So there is a few opcodes like move well, go to, add, or conditional or resulting integer are used to in the rpg third. So instead of that, we can move to the new thing like we are used to in the rpg 4, because the updating things is already always running in behind of that. So before mean instead of using that, if you are using new things, so it will quite good understandable for our new generation also. Okay, that is using for that. Okay, so for that, if you are avoiding these kind of things, so it's quite good. And in RPG3 we are using if and few things with that, and do you, so instead of you think we can use do while and do until loop, and with that. Okay, and that's in for that.
So that's all for today's session. And for more queries, you can join our clinical session at 6:30. So thank you, everyone.